Welcome everybody. I would like to start off today with a joke. And it's about a storm that was going to hit, causing terrible flooding. And everybody was informed that they should evacuate. But one man, named Joe, was very religious and felt like he would be safe if he stayed. He actually felt so confident that he stood outside and watched the storm as it hit. Pretty soon, flood waters started to rise, and they hit up to his knees when a rescue boat came and said, "Sir, hop into the boat." And Joe said, "No, God will save me." The waters continued to rise, and pretty soon it was up to his neck. And another boat came, and the rescue people said, "Sir, hop into the boat." And Joe said, "No, God will save me." Then Joe climbed up on top of the roof and sat there praying. And pretty soon a helicopter came, and they threw down a rope ladder, and they said, "Sir, grab the ladder." And he said, "No, God will save me." Well, pretty soon Joe died and went to heaven. He asked God, "Why didn't you save me?" And God said, "I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. What more could I do?" Now this joke is relevant to today's topic, which is on preppers. Now some of you might think of a prepper as a crazy person with a tin hat and a sign that says the end of the world is near, or some of you might not know what a prepper is. So today I will explain what that is. And I wanted to let you know that I am a beginning prepper, and I have my bug out bag, which I will explain in a little bit. But to start off with, I'd like to say that the inspiration for today's topic was the Hurricane Sandy storm that hit the east coast of the United States. Some of you may be familiar with photographs like this that were all over the news a few months ago. According to the HuffingtonPost.com news article in November of 2012, they stated that 125 people died in this storm, but many others suffered waiting for rescue. It was hard for rescue vehicles to get in there because of all the flood waters and all the debris. So when they finally did get in there, they actually ran out of water, didn't have enough water for all the survivors. There also was no power in that area for over 2 weeks. And when people started to get desperate, there was a lot of looting going on, and a lot of people heard shots every night while other people were trying to protect their own food and water. So, as you guys live in Nebraska, you might say, well, this doesn't affect me, a hurricane's not going to hit me. But Nebraska is known to be the 5th state in the country for tornadoes, and we average about 50 tornadoes a year. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with doing the fire drills or tornado drills where you go down in the basement. But what do you do if your house does get hit by a tornado and maybe you're confined into an area with debris all over and you can't get out? Do you have food and water? These are things that you should consider. And that brings me to the definition of a prepper. According to the Wikipedia on the internet, it says a prepper is somebody who prepares for changes in their day-to-day environment. And then it deflects you to survivalists, who are people who prepare for emergencies, not just immediate emergencies, but long-term, like social and financial. But we're going to go with the coping with the times definition, which is just a person that's preparing for any type of emergency. Now, there are 2 different types of preppers. There's a short-term prepper and a long-term prepper. A short-term prepper is somebody who prepares for an emergency that can happen, that will only last about 72 hours to 3 months. Whereas a long-term prepper is someone who prepares for many, many years. So a short-term prepper person would want to take into account food and water and shelter, security, medical, and the long-term prepper takes those into account, but they also do a little bit further as far as they try to grow their own food, they do hunting, make their own clothes, try to have rain barrels to capture water. So now you might think it's a little overwhelming to prepare for the end of the world emergencies. You don't need to prepare for everything at once. Getting started is really easy. One of the first things you can do, according to RespondOrZero.com, they say to make a list of the type of emergencies that you could expect might happen to you, such as a fire, weather, power outages, and so forth. And once you make your list, then you sort them in the order that you think is most likely to occur. And you plan that way. You start small and build up. Then you need to make a list of supplies, of stuff that you actually would need. Now, PackAlert.com has come up with 10 items that you should start with. So 10 items is not very much. and or much to think about. And I have some pamphlets that I can pass out after the end so that you don't have to take notes or anything. But they recommend that you have a flashlight, water, food, fire. Now they say guns or ammo, but that could just be self-defense weapons. Blankets, a first aid kit, knife, radio, fuel, and trash bags. Now, the Prepper's Pocket Guide is a very handy book that tells you that one of the first things you should do is declutter your home, because you're going to need a spot to put all your items. Now, the other thing I'd recommend to do while you're trying to stock up on your items is to consider creating a bug out bag. Now, a bug out bag is a bag that you use to put your supplies in for 72 hours. Now, here's some of the items in my bag. I have a portable little sleeping bag, so in case I have to go to a center or anything, I would have my own bag, so I don't have to worry about them not having enough cots. I have my first aid kit. I have an MRE, which is a military meal pack, but you could easily put in some protein bars. My water is in, this here is a Camel pack in here that's got my water in it. It's very easy, but you can easily throw in a few bottles of water. You just don't want to make your bag so heavy you can't carry it. Now, fire is one of the things that there was mentioned here to have, and I actually have some lighters and a fire starter thing. There's multiple, you can have multiple things. Here's my lighters. Now, I don't have a gun or ammo, but I do have pepper spray, and that might work. I also have a knife, which could come in handy, and I have my little flashlight, which is a nice size, so it's not so heavy. And then I have my blanket, and you might not know this, but this is a little thermal blanket, and it looks very tiny, but it actually expands out to be very large. So it's an easy way to carry something that could be valuable to you. So now that you know some of the basics, I always like to tell you there's a lot of resources out there on the subject. If you go out to the internet, you can just put in preppers and find out more information. There's also a television show on the National Geographic Channel that on Doomsday Preppers, which has some of the fanatic preppers, but you can find out some interesting things on that. There's also some radio shows that you can listen to online. And there's some camps you can visit if you want to be trained in it. One site called Outdoors411.com has survival camps for people in Nebraska. So I'd like to say that a quote by Mark Spitz that says, if you fail to prepare, then you're prepared to fail. So don't be Joe, and I would prepare and remember Hurricane Sandy victims. You don't want to be in those situations. Remember that a prepper is just somebody getting ready for an emergency, and there's two types, a short term and long term, and it's very easy to get started. Just start off small and build, and I say hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Thank you.